Hi everyone, welcome to episode 30 of the arieknits podcast. My name is Ariel and this is a video podcast where I talk about pretty much all things knitting, sometimes crocheting, sometimes sewing things, and a lot of yarn things because I love hand-dyed yarn and just yarn in general. So yeah, so this is episode 30 and today it is Saturday, May 13th, and surprisingly, I usually, not that you'll notice any difference at all, but I usually film on Saturdays at maybe around 2 p.m. or maybe, yeah, sometime between 1 and 2 p.m. I feel like, and today it is actually 5 p.m. because I actually went out today and did something, which is, for me, I'm very much like a home, stay at home. I like staying I like staying at home inside a lot of the time. So when I do go out, it is kind of a, I don't want to say a big deal, but it is kind of just out of the ordinary for me. But yeah, I am glad that the sunlight is still out. So even though it is 5 p.m., there's still sunlight and natural light shining through here by the window that's like right here so that I can still film a video. So anyway, yeah, it is, let's just get started. So I'll start with what I am wearing, and it's also a finished object for this week. And I'm noticing now when I'm looking in the camera that I look very pale. Like, I know I'm a very pale person, but just sometimes when I can see my arms, I just realize how pale I am. And that's, I mean, I stay indoors all the time, so it shouldn't be a surprise to me, but yeah. So anyway, what I am wearing today, it is the Sunset Cami by Sari Nordlund. It is a test knit, so the pattern is not out yet, though it should be out pretty soon. So again, Sunset Cami or Camisole by Sari Nordlund, and I will stand up so you can see the full thing. So it is pretty much like a standard kind of like tank top. Nothing too crazy. It's made with, you know, the triangles for the top here and also in the back. But the biggest kind of like design thing on this is the ruffle that goes diagonally across the front here. So as you can see, that's what that looks like here. I'll try to stand a little more back. Yeah, so that is what the Sunset Cami looks like. And the yarn I used is from Pasley Knits, and it is the colorway Mount Fuji in the Sailing Sport base, which is the baby alpaca base. And it is such a lovely yarn base. Like, it is so soft. I really like working with it. It is surprisingly a sport base, and I know, like, in last week's video, I was talking about how I've just been, for some reason, wanting to make or very drawn to patterns lately that ask for sport weight yarn. And it's just not a yarn that I immediately, gravitate towards, or is something that I just have in my stash. Like, when I buy sport weight yarn, it is for a specific project. If that makes any sense. Although, I will say, when I did buy this yarn, I actually, part of my order, so this was part of Pasley Knits Japan collection, the yarn was, and I think it was the first collection she had the Sailing Sport base available, and so I just bought, pretty much all the colors I bought from that collection, I bought on the Sailing Sport base because I knew that I would love it, and I do, and I had other plans for, just to make a tank top with the yarn, but you know, I just kept, I think because it was during the winter time, so I was very much just wanting to knit all the sweaters. I still like knitting sweaters, but now that it is warmer and tank tops are kind of something I want to start knitting again, I saw the test knit for this, and this year my goal is to only do test knits where I have yarn in stash to make. So yeah, I thought this would be a perfect yarn to pair with this test knit and the pattern, because the pattern does call for sport weight yarn. And so yeah, so I did make it with a sport weight yarn, Sailing Sport Base by Pasley Knits, and I really like it. And I made size 1, and I used US 2 needles to make this. I believe that I sized down my needles maybe by like 1 size because that's just how my gauge ended up. However, my final measurements ended up being smaller than I think is supposed to be, and I think that is just sometimes when you gauge swatch, for me at least, it's a hit or miss with gauge swatching. Sometimes the gauge will translate well from the swatch to when I actually make the garment, and sometimes, I don't know what happens, but they just differ from the gauge swatch versus the final garment. So my final measurements that I got on this after blocking, I got 26 inches in circumference right at the top here. And it is an A-line top, so there are increases on the sides so that the bottom hem should be bigger in circumference than right at the top. But right at the top, I measured 26 inches in circumference, and that gives me 4 inches of negative ease, which when I was measuring, I like triple checked it because when I wear it, it doesn't seem like that much negative ease for some reason. I don't usually make things with negative ease just because I, in general, like things to be loose and not tight on me, but this feels great. So yeah, so this is just what 4 inches of negative ease looks on me. I do really like the drape of this yarn, especially for the ruffle part of the top, and I think it matches really well. And I really like it, and I'm excited that actually this weekend, or this coming week in Seattle, is supposed to get pretty hot, and so I am busting out all of my summer knits, and thankfully this is one of them. So I am planning on just making the use of wearing a tank top, a knitted tank top, all my knitted tank tops while it is warm. And although, yeah, I still have sweaters that I want to knit, so I will still be working on those, of course. But yeah, it is time to start bringing out and planning some summer knits, and so that's pretty exciting. And yeah, so that is what I'm wearing today, and one of my finished objects for the week. Well, one of, but the only finished object for this week. I'm really happy I finished it so that I can wear it, and it's really cute. So all pluses around for this top. Next, I have just a few works in progress or whips to talk about because I was quite good this week. I do have one new cast on, but besides that one, I stayed pretty consistent on the things that I was working on just to make lots and lots of progress on some things. So I will first start off with the one that I have been working on exclusively for the past 2 days, and that is my birch pullover. So let me show you my progress on my birch pullover. So pretty much the only thing I have left for the birch pullover is the body, and so I have been working on the body, and I actually think this would be great. I don't know why I didn't think about doing this before, but, or maybe, I kind of did, but didn't really, I don't know, I don't really do it for all my projects, but I did put a stitch marker on so that I can actually see how much I've worked within the past week or whatever timeline, from when I put in the stitch marker. But I thought it would be a great idea, not only for me to know how much I worked and to feel good about how much knitting I got done, but also to show you, because the last time I showed the birch pullover, I think I was also still working on the body, and so it might not, unless you're looking at the video side by side, you won't be able to notice, I think, how much progress was made, but now you can. So again, I picked this up 2 days ago, so it it hasn't been, you know, that many days, but it is the only thing that I have been knitting on for the past 2 days. And this is how much progress I made. So from the stitch marker, and I think that's pretty good. I do think that that is at least a couple inches, maybe like 2.5 inches. I don't know, but I think that's pretty good, especially because this is half fisherman's rib and I'm using US 1.5 needles to make this, and so, you know, it is a lot of knitting, as everyone who has seen or made the birch pullover knows that this sweater is just, it's a ton of knitting. So I feel really good about how much progress I have made on this, and I think I only need about 2 inches of the body and then 2 inches for ribbing at the hem. So I am very close to finishing the birch pullover, and I'm going to set a goal for myself to see if I can continue with like the streak I've had on this, on kind of just working exclusively on this, to finish this by the next episode. So we'll see if that happens. It is something I think is doable if I only work on this. So yeah, so that's how this is going so far. I'm really, really excited for it to be done. And yeah, so again, I don't think I've said like any details for this. Because I feel like maybe, you know, I've talked about this so much in so many videos because it has been a while since I have casted this on. But for any new viewers or for anyone who just hasn't heard me talk about this, again, birch pullover. The pattern is by Andrew Mowry, and the yarn I am using is from woolberryfiberco, and I am using the Berry Natural base, which is the non-superwash base, the fingering weight base in the colorway I Smell Snow, which is a variegated, and I believe it was a collective colorway. And I am making size 1, and I'm using US 1.5 needles. And I am so close. It is almost there. And it's looking great. I really, really am liking how it is continuing to come out as I knit on it. And it looks like it's going to be a very cozy knit to have. Also, now that I have knit more of the body, I can say it was such a great move to, so I've mentioned this in a previous video about this, but the beginning of round marker is kind of off center in the front, and you can tell where it was because just how the stitch pattern works, it creates a color jog when you are using variegated yarns. So you can tell that there are no lines of color that cross this section here. But then right about here, I believe, somewhere over here, is where I moved my beginning of round marker to be under the arm. And to do that, but still keep in pattern, it's not like if you work in stockinette where you can literally just move the marker to be somewhere else. For this one, you actually have to, and I don't know if there is a better way to do this, but what I did was I completed a full round so that every single stitch that was on my needles were worked the same way, and then, which in this case was a purl round, so everything was purled. And then I slipped stitches all the way until an underarm, and then placed the marker, and then continued on from there. So in some section of the front, the stitches are probably worked 1 row less or something because I slipped them before kind of going around again. But I think maybe not actually. I'm not totally sure, but I don't notice it like as far as visually, where I kind of like slipped the stitches and moved everything, but you can tell that there is like this color jog line here and then it disappears down here. I feel so like that doesn't bother me that there is a line, and I feel like only if you look at it closely or if someone brings your attention to it, you'll notice it. But honestly, like it doesn't bother me enough to have to like redo it or anything like that. But I am really happy that I have moved it for the rest of the body. And yeah, so I think it's looking great. Yay, okay. So that is progress on my birch pullover. And then I have progress also. It was, well, not all Andrea Mowry patterns, but the next one that I did make progress on is another Andrea Mowry pattern. And this is my big cozy cardi. I am hoping to kind of always have some kind of progress on this every week from now on until I finish it, just because it's going to be a huge project. So I want to be able to work on it, like, even if it's a little bit every week, like just getting something done every week on it. I think it'll help to just get its way to being done. And this, again, is something that even if I show it, like, it might not be quite visible on how much maybe I've knitted on it. But this is what I have so far for the big cozy cardi. And I am also putting a stitch marker every week, just at the start of the week, so that I can see and that you can see how much I've worked. So I've worked maybe like 1.5 inches on that. And I think I've just barely reached the halfway point on this, which is just insane because it already looks like so much. But yeah, so I'm a little over the halfway point now. But that's exciting. I do like having the stitch marker just to show me that, yes, I have worked a couple inches on this, just so that it helps me just feel like I am making progress while I work on it. So I think that has been helping me with my larger projects. And yeah, so just details on this again. Yarn, I am using La Bien Aimée in the Merino twist base in the colorway Jinju, which I'm really happy with the colorway choice for this. And yeah, so it is a variegated purpley pink kind of yarn color, and I'm really liking how it's turning out for this. And I am using US 3 needles, if that's right. Yes, US 3 needles, and I am making size 1, which is the smallest size for the big cozy cardi, but it's still going to be massive, and I'm really, really excited for the finished object of this. So that is progress on a second project this week. And then I only have one more whip to show you this week, but it is a new cast on, and so this is what I casted this on last Sunday, and it was what I was working on kind of just at the beginning half of the week before I moved on to my big cozy cardi and my birch pullover. But oh my goodness. Okay, so I casted on the No Sweatshirt by Park Williams, and it is something that I have been wanting to make for a while, but again, like, I was like waiting for the perfect yarn inspiration to make it, and then I found the yarn, and then I just kind of kept like waiting to cast it on after, you know, finishing certain projects, and then it was finally the week to cast it on, and I've already split for the arms and joined the body, started working on the body. So a lot of progress has been made, and this has actually been a really nice project to work on because my other two projects that I just showed are both fingering weight and both massive projects, and so they just take a lot of time and effort to work on, and so this has been really nice. It is DK weight yarn that I am using, so the knitting has felt like it's been flying on this, so I think that's why there's just like a whole lot of this done already. And the yarn I am using is Woolberry Fiberco in the Berry Natural DK base, so it is a non-superwash base in the DK weight, and the colorway I am using is Mornings at the Coffee Shop, which was a collective colorway in January of this year. And so I am working on that, and it's really cool because in the end it is actually reverse stockinette, and I really like how this colorway is working up and how it looks on like the reverse side where it's all the pearls. So let me just like put this inside out for a little bit to show you kind of like what that looks like. I think for variegated colors, like reverse stockinette looks really nice with it, and so this is kind of like how that's going to end up actually looking and being the right side of wearing it. Although you can always, you know, wear it the other side around, like you can choose, but I am going to decide to wear it in reverse stockinette unless for some reason once I finish it I feel differently about it. But I like how it's been working out. I am actually alternating skeins on this. I wasn't in the beginning, so let me just like show you what I've been doing. So I started with one skein and worked only with one skein from the top, kind of doing those raglan increases, and then I had to add in a second skein before I finished the increases just towards the end. And then the pattern for the colors were looking nice at the top. Then once I split for sleeves and started working the body and the round, because there is now like there's less stitches of working in the round, and so the pattern repeat of the yarn color is now different, and I was noticing color pooling, maybe not pooling really, but it started creating those diagonal lines, and you can still kind of see that. Let me maybe just hold it like this so you can see, like, I think you can tell that there is kind of like a diagonal line of color starting to go this way. So that's when I decided to put in a second skein and start alternating skeins every other row using helical knitting, which is what I used for the first time making the top that I am wearing. And I found the technique to be quite easy and manageable to do. And so for alternating skeins, if I have to do that in the round stockinette stitch, I feel very not scared by it, and so I decided to start doing that for this. And you know, you can still see kind of that diagonal color thing going on, but I think it would have looked worse if I only stuck with one skein and didn't alternate skeins. So that is what I have been doing for this, and I'm happy with how it's going so far. I also really like, this is the first time I am using the Berry Natural base in the DK weight. I did use the fingering weight in a sweater, I think it was called the Orangey sweater. That was like my first time using the Berry Natural base, and it was fingering weight. Then I cast it on my birch pullover, which is also fingering weight in the natural base. But this is the first time using the natural base on DK, and I really, really like how it feels. It feels really soft, and so I think for the no sweatshirt, it's going to be a really cozy kind of, you know, thing to throw over like whatever I'm wearing, and just to be cozy and soft. And with the hood, it'll be the first time I make like a hood for something like a hoodie, and so I'm also really excited to work that and see how that is done, and just to have like a hoodie in my knitting closet, my knitting finished objects. So yeah, it's been really fun to work on this, and I like that it's going pretty quickly, and the yarn I really like. I like how it feels, so it's all been just good things. Really excited that I finally have these on my needles. I am knitting the size extra small for this, and I am using US 5 needles, which I believe I sized down one size for this. So yeah, so that is the no sweatshirt, and those were like actually the only things I have worked on this week, which I feel proud of for sticking to those things and the things that I have. I know that that was a new cast on, so it's not like I didn't cast on and just worked on the things that I had, but I do feel very proud about the progress that I've made on them. And so overall, great week of knitting, I think. And yeah, so this week is going to be a pretty short work in progress kind of like section. I do have some acquisitions again, and you know what? I have some yarn coming again later this week, and so is today's episode the third week I have acquisitions, or is it the fourth week? I think I'm going to be having acquisitions just kind of slowly coming in. They're not like big collections coming in, but I think my yarn purchases have finally, like, they're starting to arrive. I ordered a lot, and you know, because they're pre-orders, they don't come right away, and so, but now I think they're starting to come in. So anyway, I do have a couple things, and yes, these are yarn acquisitions. Yeah. Okay, so here they are. Let me start with this one first. So I am planning on buying at least one skein from the Woolberry Rewind every month this year. So if you haven't heard of it, Woolberry is doing their Rewind collection, kind of, I guess you can call it a collection. So every month this year, Woolberry will be bringing back a colorway one at a time. So one colorway per month that you can pre-order. And yeah, so my plan is to get at least one for every month this year. And at the end, if you do buy at least one of every color, you get a discount for the end of the year from Woolberry. So anyway, I believe that this was April's colorway. It was Orange Blossom. And I haven't seen this colorway before. Again, I only heard of Woolberry, I think, the beginning of last year. So any colorways that she's made before that, I haven't seen, and of course haven't bought because I didn't know Woolberry before that. So I saw this colorway and I just really liked it. And even though I am planning on getting one skein of yarn from her no matter what, like even if, then I don't know if she's made a color that I don't like, but anyway, I don't know why I'm kind of feel like I'm getting off topic, but okay, so this is Orange Blossom. I got 3 skeins of Berry Merino base, which is the 100% superwash merino base. It's 400 yards for 100 grams, and I am a pink person. I like pink, and orange is sometimes a hit or miss for me as far as like the shade of orange, and this orange I really, really like. It's definitely like a peach orange, and yeah, so to me it's close to pink. I think because it's a light colored orange and it kind of reminds me of like orange dreamsicle type of thing. It could be also because the name Orange Blossom. It's also really cute and just reminds me of like, yeah, like orange. What did I just say? Like dreamsicle? Is that right? Like the ice cream thing? And yeah, the green speckles are also really cute. So it just feels like orange trees and stuff like that. So I thought it was really cute. Perfect for spring and summer. And so I do want to make, my current plans for this is to make a farfa top with it. It is a pattern by the Knit Pro Girl. I haven't made one yet, but it is one of those patterns that I have yarn and stash that I want to make multiples of. So this is one of the colorways that I want to make that top with. I think it'd be really cute. So I do have 3 skeins of this. That came in the mail this week, and it makes me really happy. And it's, yeah, just a really cute colorway. Okay, and then the other things that I got in the mail, I got my lavenderfiberco yarn in the mail, and it is so pretty. So pretty. Okay, I bought the same colorway, and I got them I got the same colorway on 3 different bases, and I got 1 skein of each. So I will show them individually first. So first I will show you in the classic DK base. So pretty. So I got the colorway Love Story. This is the classic DK base, so it's 100% superwash merino, 231 yards for 100 grams, and I really like pink and green. Like, I really like that color combo, and I love how soft the pink and the green are in this colorway. So yeah, there's also like hints of just like peachy pink as well. So there's like, yeah, like a blush pink, peachy pink, and some green in there. And it's just so soft and really pretty. Really like this colorway. And so I did get 1 skein of DK, which is right here. And then I had to get this 1 skein of classic Boucle DK. I just can't with like this colorway on Boucle. Like, so the other Boucle yarns I've had, actually, yeah, I think the only Boucle that I have gotten in my hands so far in this, I believe, like this base, the DK base, was from Sewrella, and those were tonals. So this is my first Boucle DK in a variegated color, and I think it is so cute in a variegated color. And so I felt like I just had to get this. Like, it's so fluffy and it's so pretty. I don't know, I think it just looks so cute in the Boucle in this colorway. I think compared to the classic DK, the pink is just a little more brighter on the Boucle, but I think it's just so cute. It's so cute. So I got 1 skein of this, and then I was very curious about, so Lavender Fiberco has 2 Boucle, I believe it was 2 Boucle bases, and so this one, the Boucle, classic Boucle DK, how many times have I said the word Boucle? I'm going to continue saying it, but classic Boucle DK is this one. And then she also has a Boujee Boucle sock. So it is actually a sock weight, I guess. Although it is, so let me just show it to you because it looks very different. I feel like in this one, it is more loopy. I don't know if that, let me try and cover my face and see if the camera will focus on the yarn soon. But while it tries to focus, I will talk about it. So yeah, I think it is more loopy than the DK. And it is 82% superfine alpaca, 13% merino wool, 5% nylon, 328 yards for 100 grams, whereas the classic Boucle DK is just 100% superwash merino, 240 yards for 100 grams. So this one has slightly less yardage than this one. And you can kind of tell, like, because this one is DK and this one is sock weight. Although 328 yards sounds a bit more like a sport weight. Sport weight again. But anyway, I really just wanted to see what the difference was in the different Boucle. And I think, I mean, they visually just look very different. I think this one, the loops are just larger from this one. And yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah, I think I'm trying to sneak a look between the skeins here because I still want the camera to focus on these and not my face, but I want to be able to look the viewfinder so I can see what you all will actually see on the camera. But I think this shows, like, you can see the difference. So yeah, so I wanted to see what the difference in the Boucle bases were, and so I got 1 skein of each. And as far as color, so again, these are the same colorway. It seems like the DK colors are a bit brighter than the Boujee Boucle sock, but they're both lovely. And again, let me just bring up the classic DK superwash base so that you can see them all next to each other. So cute. These colors are just very up my alley. Like, yeah, so cute, so fluffy, and I am excited to use them. I'm pretty sure that my plan when I bought these was to use the Boucle DK with the classic DK, hold it together to make a pouch, like a Boucle knitted pouch. I think I've seen already a couple. There's one by Joanne or Joan Ho, who is the designer for the Teddy Zip, which was my finished object last week. She also has like a zipped pouch that is Boucle yarn as well. I think she made it because she had leftovers from a Teddy Zip, and so made it into a really cute pouch. So that's my original plan for this. I saw that there's also a circle pouch for Boucle that maybe is something. I haven't looked at the pattern yet, don't know who it's by, but I saw it and some people talking about it. I think Explorer Knits had a sample made of it or something, so that is something I will also have to look at. But yeah, I do want to make some kind of like accessory with these. I think that would be really cute. And then I really mainly bought this because I wanted to see the Boujee Boucle sock and see how that looks. Then I'll just figure out what to make with this at some later time. It is so cute and so soft and fluffy. I really just like how they all look. They're so cute. So yeah, so that it was my second yarn, not purchase, but yarn acquisition from this week. Okay, so now that we're done with the normal content of my podcast, which was what I'm wearing, finished objects, whips, and acquisitions. But I figured since I've had some time left over in the video, I've had a few requests in my comments kind of over some time already asking about what needles I use for my knitting, and so I thought today would be a great video to talk about that, because I don't think I could really talk about knitting needles for a whole video. Actually, I might be able to, but since today, if I just finish it here, it would be a shorter video than my normal, which is also totally fine. I figured I have some time and I can talk about my knitting needles. So yeah, so I do want to talk about the knitting needles that I use when I knit, and I have multiple. There are multiple kinds of knitting needles that I use to knit, and then I can talk about the specific ones that I have, what I like about each of them, and just my general thoughts on needles, I guess, as well. So let me just first bring my needles here. Okay. So I will start first with kind of maybe in like chronological-ish order of when I bought my knitting needles and when I knew I wanted to buy more or wanted to try something different. Maybe that ordering makes sense, I don't know. But I will start off first with my first interchangeable knitting needle set, and this was I started knitting, when I first started knitting, it was when I was in elementary school, and back then my first knitting needles were wooden straight needles. They were not circular needles, and then I also had some metal straight needles, and then at some point I think I probably had some kind of circular needles, but I think I mostly used straight needles back then. Then, when I picked knitting back up in 2020, or was it 2021? I think it was 2020, I wanted to buy some knitting needles for my first project, and so when I was thinking about what needles to buy, I either remembered or saw someone talk about it saying, like, you really don't need straight knitting needles. Like you can pretty much you can knit anything with circular needles. You can knit flat, you can knit in the round. Like circular knitting needles are like the way to go. You can use it for anything. And so I was looking for circular knitting needles, and because I was not sure for my first knitting project in 2020 if I would like to continue knitting after, I just bought one knitting needle, like one circular knitting needle, and it was the Takumi brand, the Clover Takumi wooden or bamboo knitting needles. I bought one circular needle in the size I needed for the pattern, and then after I made that, I was like, oh yes, I love knitting, I am going to continue knitting, and so I will buy an interchangeable knitting needle set. So I bought the Takumi knitting needle set, and it comes in this packaging. I believe I bought it from Amazon, I think. And although this brand is something, like, I've used this brand back in elementary school when I first started knitting, so I already knew about the brand of needles, and I knew that it worked for me, and so that's kind of just what I went for. I think they also sell them in like Joann's and just other craft stores, and so I figured it would be good to get. And so I bought the interchangeable needle set. You'll notice there's some missing because they're on projects currently. It comes with a good amount of cords, like plastic cords in different sizes, and so that worked well. And then the needle sizes go from a US 3, I believe. Oh, I don't even have the smallest one here. They do go down to a US 3 and go all the way up to US 15. I don't know if I've ever used like these ones above a US 11, or even from US 11 and above. I don't think I've used them, but I use a lot of the ones here. And so honestly, for like the first 2 years of my knitting, I just used this knitting needle set. This is all I had to knit everything that I have knit. And so they have lasted me a very long time. And then because these were kind of pricey, they were like, I think they were like over $100 for the set. So, they lasted me a long time, and they worked, they were good. One thing that I noticed was that when you screw the needles onto the cords while you're knitting, they'll sometimes unscrew in the middle while you're knitting, and so sometimes if you don't catch it, the needle might come off, and then your stitches all are like, get dropped, which is a little scary, or they'll get caught and it's really annoying. And it was something that I just lived with for, the first 2 years of my knitting. I didn't know that there was just any other way, or a way that interchangeable needles were fixed, or other versions where that wouldn't happen. So I just lived with that. When I found out that there are actually interchangeable needles that you can tighten enough so that they won't unscrew while you're knitting, I was looking into other needles or another interchangeable needle set to buy. And also, because my first 2 years of knitting, I started to really heavily knit a lot, and it ended up being that so many projects called for using the same needle size, and because I only have one of each, I really like working on multiple projects at a time, and so that started being kind of difficult, and I wanted to be able to have multiple of a needle size so that I can work on multiple projects. So that's when I ended up looking into, and this was recent, I think I got these at the end of last year, maybe like December and January were my next needle set. So really, this Takumi brand one lasted me a very, very long time, and I still continue to use it. And then, so after that, my next knitting needle, interchangeable needle set was from Sewrella. So when she came out with these, I actually think I I was not fast enough to buy them during the first or second round of restocks. I had to get it like the third round, I think. But aesthetically, very cute, very me. It's all pink, and I just really, really like it. The only thing that, or the thing that was very different from the other needle set is that these needles are metal, and they are also longer in length than the Takumi brand, which, let me see if I can, I'll just bring out one so you can see that they are shorter. They might not seem like they make that much of a difference. It might only be an inch shorter, but when you are knitting, you can kind of tell that there's a little bit of a difference, and it just depends on preference if you like shorter needles for the interchangeables or longer. I think the longer are easier on the hands, but anyway, so yeah, so my second interchangeable needle set is the Sewrella ones, and I was a little worried because I don't really use metal needles. I remember from back in elementary school when I was knitting for the first time that I didn't really care for metal needles. I liked the wooden needles, and I really liked my Takumi brand ones. So, or is it Clover brand? I don't know, but really liked those, so I wasn't sure if I was going to like metal needles. So I got these, tried them, and I generally like it. Like, I can knit with it. I do knit with them, but they are not my go-to, I would say. But they're just fine. I think I'm really just not a metal needle type of person, although there is one exception for them. But yeah, for these, the cords I actually liked a lot more than the Takumi ones. So that was a big plus for these, though. And they are still plastic, but they felt more high quality. And they also have that hole in them. Oh, I don't think the camera will focus, but there is a small hole in these where you can put in a thing to tighten the needles so that they will not unscrew while you are knitting. And so that was something that was really nice about these. And so I do use these sometimes. It just kind of depends on my mood and project, because just metal needles are just not my favorite. I feel like my stitches just slip off a lot easier. Like, just while I'm knitting, they just slip off. I think some people like metal needles because they can knit faster because it is slippery, more slippery than the wooden ones, so they can knit faster. But for me, they just keep falling off my needles. I also think I am sometimes a loose knitter. Like, if I had to categorize myself as a loose or tight knitter, I think I would say I'm a loose knitter. So metal needles and loose knitting is just, they make the stitches very, very slippery off the needles. So yeah, very pretty needle set. I just am not a metal needle type of person. But yeah, I mean, I will still use these sometimes, and they're nice quality needles. And then, because I realized after this that I am not quite a metal needle person, I did ask my boyfriend to buy me another interchangeable needle set for, I forget if it was Christmas or my birthday, but it was one of those. My birthday is in January, so it's very close to Christmas, so that's why sometimes I mix it up. But anyway, so my boyfriend got me this set. So this is the Lykke Driftwood interchangeable needle set. Oh, I totally forgot to say, the Sewrella needle set, the needle sizes are, there's less needles. So it goes from a US 4 to a US 11. So lately I've been living around the US 1 to 3 range, and so this starting from US 4, I'm really only kind of using the bottom ones here. So anyway, just wanted to point that out. Then, yeah, so for the Lykke Driftwood needle set, there are more needles than the Sewrella set. However, it also only starts at a US 4. It does not go below a US 4. but it does go all the way to US 17, which I have no idea if I'm ever going to use a US 17. But this is what this set looks like. It is wooden needles, but they feel very nice. Like they're not splintery, like they're very smooth. But I very, very much like these. The needle size for these are a bit longer than the Takumi, and I think they might be possibly the same size as the Sewrella ones. I'm like doing that. I think they are the same size. I wish I measured them before, like how long they are, but I don't know off the top of my head. But these are very nice, and then the cords, I believe most times these cords are plastic. So these are plastic cords, but they also feel high quality, and they have the hole in them so that you can tighten the needles so that they will not unscrew in the middle of your knitting. So those were all kind of good things in my book. I use these all the time when I can, and I say when I can because one thing I again noticed is that as of lately, at least, I've really been living in the US 1, 2, 3 range of needle sizes, and since this one starts at 4, I'm really kind of only using 4, 5, maybe 6 for my projects, unless I think I have used the 8, maybe the 9 as well, but yeah, I'm just living kind of at the bottom end of this needle set. But I really do like these needles. They don't unscrew while I'm knitting, and I really like the length of these because when I am knitting, I believe they stop right where my palm is, versus the Takumi ones kind of stop in the middle of my palm versus kind of like at the end. And so there's kind of, I don't know if leverage is the right word, but it's something that my hands, my palm can rest on versus kind of just living in my fingers. So I hope all of that rambling makes sense to you about my knitting needles, but I'm very, very happy with this interchangeable needle set. And, you know, just in general, I do use all 3 of, like, needles from all 3 of these. So as far as, like, I'm not, like, absolutely not for any of these, but I do think the Lykke ones are my favorite. And yeah, so those are my interchangeable needles that I use for my projects. And then, as far as non-interchangeable needles, or the exception to the rule about me not liking metal needles, so I do also have some, and these were recent acquisitions as well, I have some fixed circular needles, and so I did get, excuse me, sorry, I do have some fixed circular needles, and I did get the Lykke ones, the Lykke brand, so they are just like my interchangeables except they are fixed. So, you know, you can't take the needle off of the cord, they're just attached. And like I've been saying, my projects have been living around the smaller needle size range, and so I got the fixed needles in the sizes that the interchangeables don't have. So this one is US 2. I also got a US 3 so that I can have multiple US 2 and US 3 needles as well, and I've really liked them. I think I got these in the 32-inch length because that is the circumference of the garments I make are usually above that. Like 40 would be a bit long because my chest circumference is like 30 inches. So having the 32, I think most of my garments can fit on these needles. And they're also like, I can do small, or I can do magic loop with these as well. Although I think 40 is really nice, but 32 I can do magic loop with these. And so that is how I decided to get these fixed circular needles. And then my exception to the metal needles is that I really like the ChiaoGoo metal needles. I don't know what other types of needles maybe they make, but I like these ones, the ones that have the red cord. These cords are so nice. They are straight. They do not curl up like the other ones. So when you just like hang them, like they're just like straight. If that makes any sense. I don't know what they're made out of. I don't think it's like solely plastic. I really like these cords, the ChiaoGoo ones. And their metal needles, I don't know what it is about the texture, but I really like these. I think they don't feel as slippery as some other metal needles for some reason. But also, for socks, my go-to needles are the these ChiaoGoo needles. So for socks, as of right now, my favorite needles is the ChiaoGoo US 1 needle. I believe these are a 40-inch. Yeah, I believe these are the 40-inch length. And I do magic loop for my socks. And so these are my go-to for socks. I really like metal needles, and maybe it's just specifically the ChiaoGoo metal needles for socks. I did have a small circumference, like 9-inch circumference wooden needle for socks, and I just can't. I gave them a try like twice, and it's just not my favorite. They are so cute, but I knit way too tight on them, and they really cramped my hands, and they were just a no-go for me. So yeah, the other reason why I think I like metal needles for the really small size needles is because I am a little worried about breaking my wooden needles when they're that skinny. So that was kind of another consideration. It hasn't happened to me, but I've heard about it happen to some people. And so that is why I kind of went with the ChiaoGoo metal needles for the smaller needle sizes. And these are fixed circular. I also got a 32-inch fixed circular ChiaoGoo needles in US 2 and US 3 as well, and these are the US 3. So yeah, so I really like these. These are my one exception to metal needles. I really like these metal needles. So yeah, and then the other thing I wanted to say, because, and I should have said this earlier, but I just remembered it now. The Takumi set has lasted me like, 2 years, going on 3 years now. But I have finally noticed on them, and this probably is just a wooden needle problem, maybe. But after all of these years, so it's been pretty good because they have been worked a lot, I started to notice, and you won't be able to see it on the camera, but right where it starts tapering, right at the top, I've noticed it start splintering. Very slightly, but I notice it because my yarn is catching on like the smallest, like not smooth part of the needles. So I think that these have finally they're starting to wear out from just how much knitting I have done on them. So it's just something that I've recently noticed on these needles. So anyway, that is, I hope that felt like a lot of rambling about needles. So I hope for those of you who have asked in the comments for me to talk about my needles and my preferences, that hopefully that helped to answer some questions you have. I hope it wasn't too boring, but I always think maybe something that because I like to talk about it, I think it's very interesting to hear about what people's preferences in needles are and why. And also like my journey kind of like through the needles and how I figured out what I liked. Like I find it kind of interesting, but I'm always worried some people might find it very boring, and that may be the case, but I hope maybe just a few of you would find it interesting and maybe helpful, and maybe give you ideas for either needles to try or just like something that maybe you haven't considered before. So I hope that was interesting, and yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought. If you have other questions about my needles that I just didn't bring up while talking about them. then let me know in the comments down below as well. And with that, like, I want to say thank you so much for watching all of my videos. Maybe not all, but thank you for watching my videos. I just can't believe how much people watch and find my videos interesting about knitting. Like, I love talking about it. I love watching other knitting podcasts as well. So it's just really cool to be a part of this community and make friends and just be like obsessed and love knitting and yarn like all together. And so it's just so fun and exciting. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are having a great day, and as always, if you have been working on a project while watching, I'd love to know what you are working on. So feel free to leave a comment down below on what project you're working on, what yarn you're using, and maybe since, you know, I ended this video with talking about needles, let me know in the comments down below what your preferred needles are to use when you're knitting, because I'd love to know. I have no idea what, you know, other people like to use necessarily. So yeah, let me know. Share in the comments down below what you like to use for your knitting needles. And yeah, with that, I will end the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!